Right to the top of the news. The verdict is in for the man accused of the largest leak of classified information in U.S. history. Private First Class Bradley Manning has been found not guilty of aiding the enemy in the WikiLeaks case. This verdict was brought down by the judge on the case. Army Colonel Denise Lind found him not guilty. Joining us to help us better understand the verdict and what the implications are is New York State Senator Lee Zeldin. Lee is a former U.S. Army intelligence officer and federal prosecutor, and he joins us by phone. Lee, welcome. Thank you so much for taking the time today.
Good afternoon. It's good to be here.
Well, the verdict's out, and we've been waiting for this for some time. He's been waiting for this for some time. Just right out of the gate here, what are your thoughts on the verdict?
Well, while he was acquitted of one particular charge, maybe the most controversial charge, he has previously pled to lesser charges, which carried a maximum of about 20 years, and today was convicted on several different counts, counts related to espionage, theft charges, computer fraud charges, other military infractions. And he's going to be going to Fort Leavenworth most likely for a very long time. Sentencing starts tomorrow, so we'll find out for sure. So while he was acquitted of one charge, he's still being held accountable for his conduct.
Well, he's going away for a very long time. That's quite obvious. But he has some fans, Lee. I mean, there are a lot of people in Hollywood that have defended him, have compared him. They say Daniel Ellsberg. They say he's another Daniel Ellsberg. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I don't find him to be a hero. Would respectfully disagree with with the assessment of his supporters that what he did was heroic. We have a lot of people in this nation with access to classified intelligence. It's important in our efforts to keep our nation safe, to protect our freedoms and liberties at home. We need to have those relationships with countries abroad, and he put those relationships at risk. He put those service members, diplomats, others overseas at risk, and we don't need every private, sergeant, officer in the military to have that kind of freedom whenever they wish, that they can just release to the public, 700,000 confidential documents. That debate of our foreign policy, of the way that we have our surveillance programs, the way we conduct ourselves with military conflicts, that debate is an important debate to have. And decisions need to be made in the White House and Congress. It should play out in the media. But what we can't afford to do as a nation is have every single person who has access to classified information giving them the freedom to release whatever they want, whenever they want. We just can't allow that.
It brings up echoes, of course, of the Snowden case, which would involve the NSA. But 750,000 pages of information are out there. How damaging is this information? He's actually on record saying that he didn't think it would hurt the United States. How damaging do you think this information was?
Well, I think that it's very damaging. The relationships that we have with intelligence services all across the world, the trust that we try to build in intelligence sharing with other nations, sometimes with nations who are close allies, others not as much, and I think it certainly put that relationship and that trust at risk. We need to, any other nation who wants to work with us on common enemies out there around the world, they need to know that we haven't granted the flexibility to every single person with access to classified information the ability to release it, whenever they want. So I find it to be very damaging.
The big issue in this, of course, over the last certainly over the last year, has been whether or not some frame him as a whistleblower and some frame him as a traitor. Let's take the whistleblower side of this. If you're a private Manning and you have information like this and you're very disturbed by it, he said he was very disturbed by it. What's, say, the proper channel? How would you go about getting this information to the right people so that maybe something could be done about it in a constructive way?
Okay, so obviously he went the nuclear option. the one that causes the most amount of danger, there are options that are less than that nuclear option. Obviously, one that he might find to be unhelpful. You start with your chain of command. You always start with your chain of command. If that's not going to work, if that's not an option, you can speak to your JAG, the military attorneys. You could speak to the inspector general.
Could you explain that for our viewers? I hear the term often, JAG, but if you could explain what that means.
So the military attorneys are made up, are the JAG Corps. In all the branches of the U.S. Armed Forces, we have a JAG Corps made up of military attorneys. They advise the command. Sometimes the chain of command may need a recommendation or a very strong recommendation on a particular course of action. And if the chain of command is not doing the right thing, let's say in Private Manning's analysis, there are military attorneys who advise that command. So if going to the command is not dealing with a particular issue of concern, you can go to the command's military advisors. Not saying it's going to always work, but it's another option. Another option on top of that, in the Army and the military, there's something called the Inspector General's Corps. You have Inspector Generals. When something wrong is happening, their job is to investigate it and to correct it. If that's not an option, you have a lot of service members who file congressionals. They go to their congressmen from their home of record, and our congressmen, regardless of party, all across the country will often research these congressionals. They have staffs who aggressively try to get to the bottom of it on behalf of their constituents who may happen to be in the military. And I'm just going through a few different options that are out there before going to the nuclear option.
There seems like a lot of ways he could have gone. He did mention that he had tried to go to the New York Times via the Daniel Ellsberg route, who, of course, leaked the Pentagon Papers. It's a fascinating story. It seems like a disturbing trend, Lee. I hope it's one that we don't see again soon. We're out of time, but thank you so much for weighing in on this. It's a very, very